What's happening to you guys? This is Coach Joel. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the much more talented Coach Emily. Hey.
Hello.
You guys, you're joining us today. We have the daily drive. What's the daily drive all about? Listen, it takes you about 15 to 20 minutes to get to work. Maybe some of you guys, you don't drive and you're sitting at home. That's great too. The whole point, okay, this is marketing at its finest. Daily drive, you get it. It's short. It's right to the point. We talk about one thing. We get to the point. You get some information. You apply it. You feel better. Creating healthier and happier lives is what we do. Is that true?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go then. Guys, today what we're going to be diving into, we're going to talk about milk. Now, this is milk and milk alternatives, excuse me. We're going to talk very shortly about milk. And really what we're going to be focusing on is milk alternatives. Coach Emily, I always find it so interesting. We're the only mammals that drink other mammals' milk. Is that true? Is there
Yeah.
any other mammal that's going to be like, hey, a tiger's going to go drink a lion's milk? Does that happen? Like, what's going on here?
Not typically in nature, no. Yeah. So as young children, babies, we have an enzyme that can digest milk better when we're younger, which is why most kids, when they drink milk, they're fine. Yet we tend to grow out of that, and most people, as they get older, lose that ability to digest cow's milk specifically, and it can create more problems. So a lot of us are walking around not being able to tolerate dairy very well.
And that number is somewhere around like 65%. It's like over half of the population of
Hmm.
the world is
Yep.
lactose intolerant, or it doesn't have the ability to be able to break down that lactate, correct?
Yeah, and it's not always lactate. There's other components to it. And so even if you're like, well, I drink it all the time and I'm fine. Well, it could be causing some other issues you don't know about, and it could be harming you on a smaller level. Yet we know in time, when those little things chip away at your internal health, it can cause serious issues down the road.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, real quick, before we get into the alternatives of milk, what are the pros and cons of having milk? Like, should we even be
Mhm.
drinking milk? You know, if we can process the lactate and it doesn't bother us, should we be actually having it?
Yeah. So again, there's different components other than just the lactate. So you could be allergic to different types of the proteins. That's probably the most common, I would say. Um, there's other issues with regular milk, such as if you have like conventional cows, dairy, then you're going to have issues with the antibiotics that they feed the cows. That's going to cause GI upset too. And then even more so, they typically feed them hormones, and that's going to cause our own hormones to be thrown off whack as well. And then there's the factor that most of our milk these days is highly pasteurized, and that's taking out a lot of the nutrients that milk has. So a lot of the vitamins, minerals, the enzymes, they're getting pasteurized out of the milk. So typically, I would say milk and dairy in general aren't that huge as far as nutrient density goes. I would say dairy, as far as some cheeses, might be a little bit more nutrient dense because they're higher in protein, and could still have some of those nutrients. Yet overall, it's not, we don't need it. It's not something that we need to include in our day to day. So that's something that I would consider for you, especially if you're having digestive issues, if you're having skin issues, any
Mm-hmm.
kind of skin issue, or any kind of inflammation, your joints hurt, or any issues you can't explain. I highly recommend eliminating dairy from your diet and see what happens for at least a couple weeks, if not 30 days.
And a lot of people think to themselves, well, what about the calcium? Well, there's other ways to get
Mm.
calcium, right?
Yeah. So you get calcium from other plant materials, from nuts, seeds, leafy greens. And most of us, if you're eating a whole foods diet, mostly whole foods diet, then you're going to be fine as far as those levels. And if you aren't, say you get your blood drawn and you aren't, you can take a supplement or start to add those foods back in.
So there's some pros, there's some cons. If you can digest it, it should be part of your um, whole foods diet. If you can't digest it, don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I honestly wouldn't recommend it to have as a daily thing for most people.
Mm,
If you feel like you are having it as a daily part of your diet and you are doing well, some people can handle like a good organic grass-fed half and half in their coffee. That might be okay.
mm-hmm.
Same with the cheese. If you're doing sheep milk, goat milk, or a high quality raw organic cheddar cheese, then that might be okay. Yet, looking at the individual, are you having other health issues? If you are, I would say no. Take it out and see what happens.
Got you. So there's really, it really depends on the person, whether it's not a clear cut. As usual, guys, we're talking to Coach Emily here. It depends. I'm going to get you a T-shirt that just says that. It depends. It depends.
People might people might get confused with the adult diaper. I don't want
They might.
that.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. All right, so let's talk about milk alternatives.
Yeah.
If people are like, okay, I'm moving away from milk, there's a lot of these different types of milk alternatives. What are the different types that are out there? Let's just get there, and then we'll talk about quality and source and so on and so forth.
Mhm. Yeah, most clients come to me wanting a milk alternative, mostly for their coffee, to be honest. Sometimes it's for if they want to have a yogurt in their diet or certain cheeses, but most of the time it's a milk to put in their coffee or tea. And so there's different types. The main ones being nuts, a nut milk, a seed milk, and then coconut milk. Those are for sure the most common.
Out of those, what is the most commonly one used?
I don't know the for sure. Yeah, I would guess almond milk.
Mm,
Nowadays, maybe oat milk.
yeah, that's a new one. The oat milk. That's pretty popular in like coffee shops. Is the
Yeah,
oat
like
stuff?
it's a new thing. It's creamy. It tastes sweeter because it's coming from oats. Those are sweeter. They're carbohydrate rich.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
yes, yeah, becoming popular.
So we have these different types of alternatives. What are the benefits and the drawbacks of having
Mm,
alternative milk?
yeah, and I should add in there is soy yet that is becoming less and less popular for many reasons. So I would say if you are making your own nut milk or coconut milk, then there are plenty of benefits to that. There's nutrients, there's quality fats, there's some fiber if you're doing the nut milk. So there are definite nutrient benefits from those, yet most processed milks are going to have very little nutrient density or importance. So, and it's because they're so refined. They refine
Mm,
the nuts, and there's barely any of those nutrients getting through when you reach that final product. It's a lot of water, it's a lot of fillers, a lot of gums. And so finding a quality milk is highly important. Again, especially if you have gut issues or if you are not feeling your best and if you're drinking it every single day.
mm. And
So
they're going to have a lot of sugar in it too, right? I mean, if it doesn't have a ton of nutrients in it, they want it to taste good because they're trying to have an alternative to milk, which is going to have sugars in it.
yeah, that's a really good point. So either they're adding sugar, so definitely check for that, especially if you're trying to lose weight or you are trying to better your health and you're drinking a milk with added sugar every single day. Something to consider. But even more harmful, there's things called natural flavors. That is a blanket or an umbrella term that the FDA has approved to say for companies to use. And there's so many different things that natural flavors could mean. And yeah, it sounds great, right? It's natural. No, it doesn't have to be natural. In order for it to be natural, the only requirement is that it originally comes from an animal or a plant, and it can still have artificial stuff and chemicals and all these crazy things added to it. So the majority of things that you see that say natural flavors, 80-90% of those are actually chemicals and weird ingredients that you do not want. They're not helpful for your health. That's so tricky because so many products have those.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunate. And similar to that are the oils. So either the natural flavors are making it taste good, the sugar, added sugar, or they're adding in oils. So lots of those oat milks, since they are rich in those carbohydrates and they don't have as much fat, in order for a milk to taste creamy and taste good, you need fat. So they add a lot of these fats back in. usually in the form of canola or rapeseed or soy or sunflower. And these are those poor quality vegetable or seed oils that we do not want to have. They're those highly inflammatory oils that our body does not process well.
The good old omega 6s wrecking havoc on our body.
Yeah, those highly refined omega 6s not good.
Well, and to remind you guys, right, canola oil is meant for machinery. That was its initial, original purpose was machinery, you guys. And they're getting put in your oat milk. Is there any canola oil in any of the other alternatives? I know oat milk's a big one. Any of the other
Oh
ones?
yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, so typically an almond, maybe an almond and maybe a soy too. But usually the fattier, so say like cashew milk and coconut milk, they're fattier by nature, so they tend to not have those as much.
So if we know that some of these oat milk ones, some of the almond ones, to be able to have a little bit more fatty of a taste, they put in these canola
Mm-hmm.
oils. So does that mean that we should lean more towards the coconut milk and the cashew
Mm-hmm.
milk when it comes to our alternatives? What really are the better choices when it comes to alternative milks?
Yeah, yeah, and I should mention also a lot of coffee shops have what's called a barista series milk alternative. Like companies have figured out, oh, when baristas steam milk, they like to make pretty latte art and for it to all blend together well. And so then that they also add in those oils there too, and things like carrageenan, gums, and all of these things. The carrageenan is one of the more the ingredients that you want to be more aware of because it can cause harmful GI effects. Now, the gums, the emulsifiers, things like gar gum, locust bean gum, those things can be okay depending on, again, how you deal with them digestively. If you're having solid bowel movements, you should be okay to have that every once in a while. Yet, if you're having those issues, you should definitely not be having that daily or even weekly. Yet, remind me of what the original question was.
So what brand should we be going with? I mean, should we
Oh, right. Yeah.
not necessarily brand? Excuse me. I'll pull back. We'll talk about the trusty brands that we have. Overall, if we had to go, hey, I'm not going to be drinking milk. What should somebody go towards first?
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not making your own, so if you're not making your own almond milk, for example, I always go to a coconut milk because they tend to be the most simple in ingredients. So most coconut milks you'll find will be coconut cream or coconut, and then maybe some gar gum, and then sometimes they'll have added sugar. So especially if you go into a coffee shop and you look at what they're using, a lot of them will have added sugar, even though it won't say it on the front. So Starbucks, for example, I know that they have added sugar, something like 6 or 7 grams per serving of sugar, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And I could taste it. I went there. I usually never go there, but I rarely go there, I should say. And I went there a couple months back and got something with coconut milk. I'm like, man, this is so sweet. And so I
Mm-hmm.
asked to look at the carton the next time I went, and it was loaded with sugar. So but when you are looking in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to choose one and you don't quite know exactly what the ingredients are, say you're at a coffee shop, that is the one that I go to first. And in general, because it's easier to find a simpler ingredient, coconut milk.
So we know the coconut milk is your best alternative. Overall, this is a blanket statement, guys. Obviously, just like what Emily was saying, some are going to add more sugar, and some are going to have different ingredients. So make sure to check the ingredients. After coconut, because some people are really sensitive to the taste of coconut.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I cannot stand it. If they don't like the taste of coconut, what would be the next one?
Yeah, I would go to a cashew or almond. So there are more and more brands out there that are coming up with a cleaner, quote unquote, cleaner ingredient list for those. And so that would be my next go to. And brands that I really like for that would be Malk, Malk. You can find that in the store. And then Three Trees is another really good one. I believe for both of them, the ingredient list literally is organic almonds. I think Malk does sprouted, which I love, and then water, filtered water. And that's as simple as you can get with those. They are going to be more expensive, yet it's 100% worth it.
Because, I mean, that's representing more about how you would make it at home, which is basically,
Right.
you're taking some almonds and you're squeezing them out.
Yeah, exactly. And I used to
And
do that all the time. It is labor intensive, yet it is so delicious.
it really is. It really is. It really
Yeah.
is. And both those two brands, are those almond milk, or do they do cashew as well?
They do both. So Malt does almond, cashew, and pecan, and Three Trees does, I believe, almond, and they for sure do almond. They also do an oat and seed, which like that would be my more last choice.
Hmm.
Yet again, overall they use great ingredients.
And what about the coconut milk? Is there a brand that?
Yeah. So coconut milk, I actually don't buy coconut milk found in the store as far as like the refrigerator section. Because typically really aren't that many that are just plain coconut milk. There's a lot of almond coconut milk blends. And then if they are in a container, they have a lot more added things to it. So what I go and look for is in the canned aisle. Oftentimes it's like the Thai aisle or the cooking aisle. And I look for a canned coconut milk because, again, simple ingredients. And most of them are going to have that gargum. So again, if you have digestive issues, I would avoid that. Yet there is a brand, Native Forest, it's called Simple Canned Coconut Milk, and it has no gargum. It's just plain coconut milk, and that is my favorite. We stock up on that. We get it from thrivemarket.com, and that is what we use for cream in our coffee. And then I will add one more. That's another shelf stable, which is Laird Superfood Coffee Creamer. It's a powdered coconut milk, which is still super simple ingredients. They add in a type of algae. It's a plant-based source of calcium. So for those of you who are worried about getting enough calcium, they add that in there. And that is a safe source for that. And that is our other go-to. I love using that to travel with because it's so easy and not a big mess. You can pack it in a little container,
Mhm.
throw it in your coffee cup. Super simple, and it tastes good.
So we got the trusted brands. We know, hey guys, if you can, go to coconut first. If you can, and you like the taste, then moving over to almond or cashew. Now I want to touch this just because we talked about just a little bit, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Is the oat milk? It is very popular, seems these days, with the oat milk. Are there brands that we say, hey, this is the brand we would go for, and watch out for this one?
Mm. To be honest, I've not found an oat milk that is completely safe. Other than Three Trees has an oat nut blend. That is the closest I would get to it. The ones you definitely want to stay away from, and I'm so sorry to those brands, but Oatly, Pacific, most of those use carrageenan and or a rapeseed, which is canola oil. And then to add on to that, soy milk, I mentioned this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Soy milk used to be very popular and it's becoming less popular, yet some people still use it because it is higher in protein. Yet soy tends to be really highly processed, and they have phytoestrogens, which means when you consume them, they mimic estrogens in your body and can throw your hormone balance off. So I definitely recommend minimizing or avoiding highly processed soy products like soy milk too.
Hopefully, we didn't break anybody's hearts there with the oat milk.
Every time I post about it on social media about oat milk, people
They
will
get
send
so
me a
sad.
sad face.
They get so sad. They get so sad. Yet it's so true. And
It is.
I know we talked about milk alternatives, and we'll close with this. If you are going to put milk into your coffee, or you're going to use some milk, what is the best milk?
Well, like I said, the coconut milk. I love the canned coconut milk. It's pure.
No, 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 no,
It's
no.
a,
I'm
oh,
talking dairy milk. Excuse me.
oh, if you can get a raw unpasteurized dairy from like a grass-fed cow, yes, it is not legal in Nevada, yet it is in California. So check it out there.
Just head on over to Truckee, you guys. If you're in
Yeah, it
Reno,
is.
get your, because it's the benefits of having it local and grass fed. There's a lot of health benefits there, right?
Yeah, again, because it's not being pasteurized, so it's raw. So it has all the nutrients and enzymes in there that you want.
Boom. All right, there you go, guys. Daily drive, 20 minutes long. If you guys have questions about these milk alternatives, feel free, reach out to us, Joel at proclivity.co or Emily at proclivity.co. You can also go to our website, www.proclivity.co. We put a ton of great information, bunch of great blogs in there. Our podcast link is on there. So check it out. Also, if you like the podcast, make sure to like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Anything else, Coach Emily?
Actually, yes, I would challenge you next time you're in a coffee shop. If you're unsure of what milk to choose, don't be afraid to ask the barista to take a look at the bottle. I do it all the time, or the carton.
Yes.
Do it. It's fine.
You guys have to take control of your health. And that means speaking up, checking things out, asking questions, get curious. We love getting curious around here at Proclivity. All right, guys, that's it. Coach and Emily and I, we're getting on a plane tomorrow. We're heading to Austin, Texas. We got a summit that we're going over there to hang out at. Yet, we'll be back next week. Don't worry, episode 61 is going to be coming in hot. Emily, anything else?
Nope. Have a good day, guys.
Party on.